inside you that has never been confused. Not a part of you that figured things out over time. Not a version of you that learned and grew and eventually arrived at clarity. Something older than that. Something that existed before the confusion began, before the questions started, before you picked up the first story about who you were supposed to be. There is a layer of you that has been watching all of it. The searching, the doubting, the circling, the almost knowing, and it has never once been lost. You found this video, and I want you to understand what that means before we go any further. You didn't stumble here. You didn't click by accident. Something in you, the part that already knows, directed you to a specific transmission at a specific moment because you are standing at the edge of a very particular threshold. The threshold isn't about learning something new. It's about recognizing something that was never absent. The gate in front of you right now isn't a gate into more information. It's a gate into direct contact with the intelligence that has been running underneath your entire life. The part of you that chose this body, this timeline, this exact set of conditions, before you had a single conscious thought about any of it. That part is called the monad, and it already knows everything you've been trying to figure out. So the question this transmission is going to answer isn't what the monad is in the abstract. The question is something more precise, more urgent, and more personally aimed at you than that. The question is this: why are you still searching for what the monad already holds? What is the specific structure inside human consciousness that creates the gap between what your deepest self knows and what your everyday awareness can access? And more importantly, what is the exact crossing point, the threshold, the gate, where that gap closes? Because it can close. It does close, and when it closes, it doesn't close gradually. It closes the way a quantum state collapses, all at once, irreversibly. And you are standing at that crossing right now. Let's begin with what the monad actually is, because this word gets used in ways that are vague enough to be useless. And vague is the opposite of what we need here. The word monad comes from the Greek monos, meaning single, alone, indivisible. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, the 17th century mathematician and philosopher who developed calculus independently of Newton, used it to describe what he believed were the fundamental units of reality. Not atoms, not particles, not matter. Monads. Leibniz argued that the physical world we perceive, the world of extension and dimension and mass, is not the deepest layer of what exists. Underneath matter, underneath energy, underneath everything that can be measured or divided, there are monads. Simple, indivisible, non-extended units of consciousness. Each one is a complete perspective on the whole of reality. Each one is, in his exact language, a living mirror of the universe. Leibniz was doing philosophy, not physics. but he was pointing at something that quantum mechanics would later approach from a completely different direction and find waiting there. Here is what makes the monad concept precise rather than mystical. Leibniz said that each monad perceives the entirety of reality from its own unique vantage point. Not some of reality, all of it. The difference between monads isn't in what they have access to. It's in the clarity of their perception. Lower monads, what Leibniz called bare monads, perceive the whole of reality, but in a kind of unconscious fog. Their perception is complete, but confused, like seeing everything through frosted glass. Higher monads perceive with increasing clarity. The human soul, for Leibniz, is a monad of a particular grade, one capable of rational self-reflection, capable of apperception, which is his term for the awareness of awareness itself. And at the apex, God, the supreme monad, perceives everything with perfect clarity. But here is the part that matters for what you're standing at right now. Your monad, the fundamental unit of consciousness that you are, has never lost its perception of the whole. It has always been perceiving the entirety of your reality, your past, your present, your probable futures, the pattern underneath the events of your life, the reason you chose the conditions you're living in, the trajectory that everything is building toward. The monad already knows all of it. What creates the experience of confusion, of searching, of not knowing, is not a lack in the monad. It's the grade of clarity with which the monad's complete perception rises into your conscious awareness. The fog isn't in the knowing. The fog is in the translation. And that is the gate. The gate you're standing at right now is not the gate into more knowledge. It's the gate into clearer reception of what the monad has always been transmitting. The crossing isn't from ignorance to wisdom. It's from static to signal, from noise to clarity, from the experience of searching to the direct recognition that what you were searching for has been present the entire time, broadcasting on a frequency you are about to tune into fully. If this is landing for you, here's something I want to share. Have you spent years shielding yourself from other people's energy, boundaries, releases, energy clearings, and still wake at 3 a.m., running someone else's anxiety? Those tools treat it as outside you. It's not. Your nervous system has adjusted to every room for so long, it forgot its baseline. The sealed timeline, a quantum guide to becoming untouchable by wrong frequencies, walks through the 5-step crossing: the adjusting pattern, the breaking point, the crossing itself, what stable feels like, and why old evidence shows up. Every tool you tried treated this as an outside problem. This one ends the adjusting pattern that made you a receiver in the first place. The longer you adjust, the harder it gets to come back to yourself. Open it tonight. It's in the pinned comment below. Now, back to the thread we were following. Now I need to go somewhere specific with this. Because the monad concept has a direct parallel in the structure of quantum mechanics, and that parallel is not metaphorical. It is structural. It tells us something precise about why the gap between monadic knowing and conscious awareness exists, and why it collapses at a threshold rather than gradually. In quantum mechanics, a system exists in superposition until it is observed. Before observation, the system doesn't have a single definite state. It has a probability distribution across multiple possible states simultaneously. The electron isn't in one place. It's in all its possible places at once, each with a different probability amplitude. This isn't a limitation of our measurement technology. It isn't that the electron is really somewhere, and we just don't know where. The superposition is the actual state of the system. The electron is genuinely in all those places at once, weighted by probability. When observation occurs, the wave function collapses. The superposition resolves into a single definite state. The electron is now here, not everywhere. One possibility becomes actual. The others don't disappear into nothing. They simply cease to be the trajectory of this particular particle in this particular interaction. Here is the parallel. Your monad, in Leibniz's framework, holds the complete perception of your reality. All the possible trajectories of your life, all the probable futures branching from where you stand, all the patterns underlying your experience. It holds all of this simultaneously, in the way that a quantum system holds superposition. Your conscious awareness, the part of you that thinks in language and makes decisions and worries about tomorrow, functions like the observer. It collapses possibility into actuality. It selects from the monad's complete perception a single thread of experience to live through. But here is where it gets precise. The observer in quantum mechanics doesn't choose which state the system collapses into. The collapse is determined by the interaction between the observer and the system, by the nature of the measurement being taken. A different kind of observation produces a different kind of collapse. The quality of the interaction determines what becomes actual. This is exactly what determines whether your conscious awareness can access what the monad knows. The quality of your attention, the depth of your receptivity, the degree to which your conscious mind is running in a state of noise versus a state of coherence, determines what from the monad's complete perception rises into your experience. A scattered, anxious, story-saturated consciousness functions like a poorly calibrated instrument. It still collapses possibility into actuality, but it collapses into a narrow band. It keeps selecting the same familiar states, the same familiar worries, the same familiar loops, because those are the frequencies it's tuned to receive. A coherent consciousness, one that has crossed the threshold we're approaching right now, functions like a precisely calibrated instrument. It collapses the monad's perception into actuality with far greater fidelity. What the monad knows begins to surface directly as knowing, not as a feeling that you should know something, not as a sense that there's an answer just out of reach, as direct, clear, unambiguous recognition. The kind that stops you mid-sentence because it arrived fully formed. The kind that you can't argue with because it didn't come from argument. This is the crossing. From instrument that receives a narrow band to instrument that receives the full signal. And it happens at a threshold, not on a gradual incline, at a threshold. Here is why. In physics, a phase transition is a change of state that occurs at a critical threshold. Water doesn't gradually become steam. It stays liquid as you add heat, liquid, 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 and then at exactly 100 degrees Celsius at sea level, it crosses a threshold and becomes steam. The transition is discontinuous. Below the threshold, you have one phase. Above the threshold, you have another. The threshold itself is the crossing point, the place where the accumulated energy of gradual change suddenly reorganizes into a completely different structure. Consciousness works the same way. You can be doing the inner work, the practices, the inquiry, the sitting with discomfort, the gradual clearing of noise, for a long time without a dramatic shift in how much of the monad's knowing you can access. The change is happening. The conditions are accumulating. But the experience is still largely one of searching, of almost knowing, of glimpsing and then losing the thread. And then, at a threshold, everything reorganizes. The accumulated conditions tip the system into a new phase. And the new phase is not a slightly improved version of the old phase. It's a different structure entirely. You are at that threshold right now. I don't mean that as encouragement. I mean it as a description of what's actually happening. The fact that you are here, at this specific transmission, at this specific moment in your life, is itself a signal from the monad. The monad doesn't send signals randomly. It sends them when the conditions are ready. When the accumulated pressure of your searching has reached the critical threshold where the next step isn't more searching. It's crossing. If this transmission is landing for you, take a second to like it and subscribe so we can keep going deeper together. Let's talk about what is on each side of this gate, because you need to see both sides clearly before you step through. Not to make the decision to cross. The monad has already made that decision. But to understand what is actually changing, so that when the crossing happens, you recognize it for what it is. On this side of the gate, the side you are currently standing on, there is a very specific experience. It's the experience of knowing that you know something, but not being able to fully access it. You have moments of extraordinary clarity, moments where you see the pattern underneath your life, where you feel the trajectory you're on with absolute certainty. where an answer arrives from somewhere that isn't your thinking mind. And it's so clear and so complete that you almost can't believe it. And then the moment passes. The noise comes back. The doubt comes back. The story about who you are and what's possible, and whether you're really capable of trusting that clarity. All of that comes back, and you're left with the memory of the knowing, but not the knowing itself. This is the experience of a consciousness that is receiving the monad's transmission intermittently. The signal is there. The monad is always transmitting, but the reception is unstable. You get the signal in flashes, in moments of stillness, in the space between thoughts, in the clarity that arrives sometimes in the morning before the day's noise has accumulated. And then the reception breaks up, and you're back to searching. On this side of the gate, you also have a particular relationship to time. The monad's knowing exists outside of linear time. It perceives the whole of your timeline, past and probable futures, as a single complete pattern. But your conscious awareness, on this side of the gate, is almost entirely captured by the present moment's anxiety and the future's uncertainty. You know that the answer is somewhere. You know that the direction is somewhere. But you're trying to find it by thinking harder, by analyzing more, by gathering more information, as if the monad's knowing were a puzzle to be solved, rather than a signal to be received. On this side of the gate, there is also a particular relationship to your own authority. You have access to the monad's knowing in glimpses, but you don't fully trust it yet. You second-guess the clarity when it comes. You check it against other people's opinions, against what seems reasonable, against what your history tells you is possible. The knowing arrives, and you treat it as a hypothesis rather than a transmission. You test it against your doubt instead of acting from it. That's the side you're on now. On the other side of this gate, the experience is structurally different. Not better in a vague, elevated sense. Structurally different. The reception is stable. The monad's knowing doesn't arrive in flashes and then disappear. It's the background condition of your awareness. The knowing is the ground state, not the occasional peak state. The noise is still present, because noise is part of being human in a body in a world, but it no longer drowns the signal. You can hear the monad's transmission through the noise the way you can hear a clear voice in a crowd once you've learned to tune to it. On the other side of this gate, your relationship to time changes. You begin to experience what Leibniz was pointing at when he said the monad perceives the whole of reality. You don't suddenly see the future in a literal sense, but you have access to the pattern. You can sense the trajectory. Decisions that would have required agonizing analysis on this side of the gate become clear almost immediately on the other side, because you're not trying to calculate the right answer. You're receiving it. The monad already knows which path is yours. On the other side of the gate, that knowing is available to your conscious awareness in a way that it currently isn't. And on the other side of this gate, your relationship to your own authority is different, not arrogant, precise. You trust the clarity when it comes because you've crossed the threshold where you can feel the difference between the monad's transmission and the mind's noise. They feel different. They arrive differently. They have different qualities. And once you can reliably feel that difference, the second guessing dissolves. Not because you've decided to be more confident, because you're working with a different quality of information. One version of you is standing at this gate. A different version walks through it. I want to pause here and ask you something. Has there been a moment in your own life when you knew with absolute certainty that you had crossed a point of no return? A moment when everything shifted at once, when you stepped through something and could feel that the person who stepped out the other side was not quite the same as the one who stepped in? Leave that in the comments. I read them, and those moments matter more than you might think. Now, I need to tell you about something that happens at this threshold that most people don't anticipate. Something that explains why so many people stand at exactly this gate and don't cross. Not because they're not ready, not because the gate isn't open, but because of a specific misunderstanding about what the crossing feels like from the inside. The crossing doesn't feel like gaining something. It feels like losing something. This is crucial. Hold it. When a quantum system transitions from superposition to a collapsed state, something is lost. The other possible states, the other probability amplitudes, they don't become actual. They cease to be part of this system's trajectory. The collapse is a gain of specificity and a loss of possibility. Before the collapse, the electron could be anywhere in its probability distribution. After the collapse, it is here. The here is definite, but the everywhere is gone. When your consciousness crosses the threshold into stable reception of the monad's knowing, something similar happens. The searching ends. And the searching, even though it's been painful, even though it's been exhausting, even though you've wanted it to end for a long time, the searching has also been a kind of identity. You have been someone who is looking for the answer. Someone who is on the way to knowing. Someone who is in the process of becoming. And when the monad's knowing becomes your stable ground state, that identity dissolves. You are no longer on the way. You have arrived. And arriving feels, in the first moments, like a kind of death. The version of you that was searching doesn't cross the gate. It ends at the gate. What crosses is the version that knows, and the transition between those two. The moment where the searching self ends and the knowing self begins. That moment feels like standing at an edge with nothing on the other side that you can see yet. Because you can't see the other side from this side. You can only know it's there because the monad is transmitting it to you, and you're learning to trust that transmission over the evidence of your searching mind. This is why the gate requires courage, not the courage of someone who is certain everything will be fine. The courage of someone who is willing to let the searching self end, to let the almost knowing dissolve, to step into a quality of experience they cannot yet fully perceive, because the monad is transmitting that it's time. There's a story I want to tell you now, a parable that lives inside this threshold. Her name was Mira. She had spent 11 years studying the nature of consciousness, not casually, obsessively. She had read the philosophers, the mystics, the physicists who had crossed the boundary between their discipline and the question of mind. She had sat in meditation for thousands of hours. She had gone to teachers who promised to show her the ground of being, and had come away with insights that lasted weeks and then faded. She had journals filled with moments of clarity, breakthroughs that she'd written down in the middle of the night because they were so complete and so obvious that she was certain she would remember them, and then she didn't remember them. Or she remembered the words, but not the living quality of the knowing itself. Mira was not someone who lacked intelligence or dedication or genuine longing for the truth. She was someone who had developed an extraordinary capacity for approaching the threshold. She could get very close. She could feel the edge. She could describe the gate with remarkable precision. But she had never crossed it. She knew this about herself. That was the particular quality of her suffering. She wasn't confused about whether she was close. She was close. She could feel the monad's transmission. It arrived in her most quiet moments with a clarity that was almost unbearable. Almost, because it was always followed by the noise coming back, the doubt coming back, the sense that she hadn't quite arrived yet, that there was still something she needed to understand or clear or integrate before she could trust what she was receiving. One morning, she sat down to meditate, and something different happened. She didn't have a vision. She didn't hear a voice. She didn't experience a dramatic opening of any kind. What happened was quieter and more final than any of that. She sat down, and as she settled into stillness, she became aware of a quality of knowing that was present in the room with her. Not a thought, not a feeling, a knowing. And instead of reaching for it, instead of trying to hold it, or examine it, or make sure she was understanding it correctly, she simply noticed it. She let it be there. She didn't move toward it, and she didn't move away from it. She sat with it, the way you sit with a person who has been in the room the whole time, and you've only just stopped being too busy to notice them. And in that noticing, something ended. The searching ended. Not because she decided to stop searching, not because she told herself she had found what she was looking for. It ended the way a sound ends when the source of the sound stops. There was no dramatic moment of cessation. There was simply a point at which she realized the searching had been quiet for some time, that she had been sitting in the presence of the knowing without trying to grasp it, that the monad's transmission was no longer something she was reaching for. It was something she was resting in. She didn't move from that spot for a long time. When she finally did, she noticed that the knowing was still there, not as a peak experience that was fading, as a ground condition, as the quality of the room itself. She made tea, and the knowing was there. She looked out the window, and the knowing was there. She thought about her life, about the decisions she'd been circling, about the questions she'd been carrying, and the knowing was there, present and clear, not shouting, but audible, the way a voice is audible when there's no other noise in the room. She hadn't gained anything that morning. She was very clear about this when she tried to describe it later. She hadn't added anything to herself. What had happened was a subtraction. The searching had ended. The reaching had ended. The almost knowing had ended. And what remained when those things ended was what had always been there underneath them. The monad's knowing, complete, continuous, never absent, only previously obscured by the noise of the search itself. This is the paradox at the center of this threshold. The searching that is trying to reach the monad's knowing is itself the primary source of noise that obscures it. The effort to find the signal is generating interference that makes the signal harder to receive. And the crossing, the actual threshold crossing, is the moment when the searching ends. Not because you've decided to give up, because you've accumulated enough clarity to recognize that the monad's knowing was never on the other side of the search. It was always underneath it. Mira's story is a parable, but it's a parable of something structurally real. And the structure is this. The threshold between searching consciousness and knowing consciousness is crossed by subtraction, not addition, by ending, not gaining, by the collapse of the searching state into the knowing state, which is what was always there in superposition underneath the search. Think about Mira for a moment, and think about yourself. Where in your own life have you felt that particular quality she carried? The almost knowing, the sense of being right at the edge of something you couldn't quite step through. What was the threshold? And what was it that finally let you stop reaching? Share it below if you're willing. These are the kinds of crossings that illuminate something for everyone who reads them. Now, I want to go somewhere that most transmissions on this subject don't go, because they stay at the level of the experience and don't examine the mechanism. I want to examine the mechanism, because understanding the mechanism is part of what tips the system toward the threshold. The reason the monad's knowing doesn't surface continuously into conscious awareness is not a mystery. It has a specific structure. Leibniz described it in terms of grades of perception. Modern consciousness research describes it in terms of signal and noise. Quantum mechanics describes it in terms of coherence and decoherence. All three are pointing at the same thing from different angles. Here is the mechanism. Your nervous system is an extraordinarily complex information processing system. At any given moment, it is receiving an enormous quantity of sensory input, coordinating the activity of trillions of cells, running the background processes of your body, managing your emotional state, processing your memories, generating your predictions about what's going to happen next, and simultaneously trying to construct a coherent narrative about who you are and what's happening to you. The bandwidth demand is immense, and the system has evolved to prioritize certain kinds of information over others. What gets prioritized is threat, novelty, immediate social information. The things that, from an evolutionary standpoint, most immediately affect your survival and your place in the group. These are loud signals. They are designed to be loud. They override quieter signals because, for most of human evolutionary history, missing a loud signal about an immediate threat was more costly than missing a quiet signal about a deeper pattern. The monad's knowing is a quiet signal, not quiet in its content, which is complete and precise, but quiet in the way it arrives. It doesn't arrive with urgency. It doesn't arrive with the emotional intensity of a threat or a social signal. It arrives with a quality that could be described as settled certainty, a knowing that doesn't push, a transmission that waits to be received rather than demanding to be heard. In a nervous system that is running at high noise levels, that quiet signal is almost entirely drowned out, not because it isn't there, because the system's attention is captured by louder inputs. This is not a moral failing. It's a design feature of the biological system you're operating. The design feature that kept your ancestors alive long enough to have descendants is the same design feature that makes it difficult to hear the monad in the middle of an ordinary day. What changes the equation is coherence. In physics, coherence refers to the degree to which the phases of a wave are correlated. A coherent light source, like a laser, produces waves that are all in phase with each other, all moving together, which is why a laser can maintain its intensity over long distances while ordinary light disperses. An incoherent source produces waves that are out of phase with each other, interfering with themselves, losing intensity rapidly. A coherent nervous system, one in which the various components of your awareness, your body, your breath, your emotional state, your attention, are all moving together rather than pulling in different directions, produces a dramatically different signal-to-noise ratio than an incoherent one. In a coherent state, the quiet signal of the monad's knowing becomes audible in a way it simply cannot be in an incoherent state. Not because the monad is transmitting more loudly, because the system receiving the transmission is finally quiet enough to hear it. This is why practices that produce coherence, certain forms of meditation, certain breath work, certain states of deep rest, certain moments of profound beauty or love or grief can produce sudden access to the monad's knowing. The practice isn't generating the knowing. The knowing is always there. The practice is reducing the noise, increasing the coherence, and allowing the signal that was always present to surface into conscious awareness. And here is the threshold dynamic. Coherence, like temperature in a phase transition, accumulates. Each practice, each moment of genuine stillness, each time you choose the quiet signal over the loud noise, adds to the system's capacity for coherence. The change is gradual. The accumulation is real. But the threshold is not gradual. There is a point at which the accumulated coherence tips the system into a new phase, a phase in which the monad's knowing is the stable ground state, rather than the intermittent peak state. And that tipping point, that phase transition, is the gate. You have been accumulating coherence. The fact that you can feel the edge of this threshold, the fact that the monad's transmission is close enough to almost feel, the fact that you found this transmission at this moment, these are not coincidences. They are signals that the accumulation has reached the critical threshold. The gate is open because the conditions are ready, not because you deserve it or have earned it in a moral sense, because the physics of the system have reached the crossing point. Now, I want to give you something specific. A practice, not a generic meditation. A specific threshold practice designed for exactly this crossing, for the specific gate between searching consciousness and knowing consciousness, between intermittent reception and stable ground state. This practice has 3 movements. I'm going to walk you through all 3, and then I want you to actually do it, not as an exercise, as a crossing. The first movement is called settling the instrument. Find a position where your body can be completely still without effort. Not rigid, still. Let the weight of your body be fully supported by whatever is beneath you. You don't need to hold yourself up. The ground holds you. Let it. Now bring your attention to your breath, not to control it, not to change it, simply to notice it. The breath is already happening. You didn't start it. You don't need to maintain it. It's happening on its own, the way the monad's knowing is happening on its own. Your job right now is simply to notice what is already occurring. As you notice the breath, let your attention drop below the level of thought. Not by pushing thoughts away, by letting your attention sink the way a stone sinks in water, not fighting the water, simply moving through it to a deeper level. The thoughts are still there, at the surface. You're going deeper. Keep sinking. Keep letting the weight of your attention move down, below the noise, below the commentary, below the story about what you're doing and whether you're doing it right. Keep going until you feel a quality of stillness that isn't something you're creating. It's something you're arriving at. It was already there. You're just reaching the depth where it lives. Stay there. Don't do anything. Just be at that depth. This is the coherence state. This is the instrument settling into its most receptive configuration. Stay here for as long as it takes to feel genuinely settled, not relaxed in a surface sense, but settled in the sense of the whole system coming into our alignment. You'll know the difference. Relaxed is a physical feeling. Settled is a quality of the whole system coming into alignment. This is the first movement, settling the instrument. The second movement is called opening the reception. From the settled state, bring a single question into your awareness, not a question you're trying to answer, a question you're opening to receive. The question is this: what does the monad already know that I am ready to receive right now? Don't answer this question. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Simply hold it in the settled state, the way you'd hold a bowl out to receive rain. The bowl doesn't make the rain. It simply holds itself open in the right orientation. Hold the question open. Let it sit in the stillness without demanding a response. Let the silence around the question be as important as the question itself. Now, in this open state, notice what arises, not what you think, not what you expect. What arises? There may be an image. There may be a quality of knowing that is hard to put into words. There may be a sense of direction, a sense of yes or no, or here or there. There may be something that feels like a memory, but isn't a memory of anything that has happened. More like a memory of something you've always known. Whatever arises, don't grab it. Don't analyze it. Don't immediately try to translate it into language and meaning. Simply receive it. Let it be present in the settled state without immediately processing it. This is the monad's transmission surfacing into conscious awareness. It may feel subtle. It may feel obvious. It may feel like nothing at first, and then you'll realize that the nothing is itself a transmission, a quality of knowing that doesn't need to announce itself because it's simply present. Whatever quality arises, receive it. Stay with it. Let it be what it is, without immediately making it into something you can explain. This is the second movement, opening the reception. The third movement is called crossing the threshold. From the state of open reception, with the monad's knowing present in whatever form it has taken, I want you to do something that may feel strange. I want you to let the searching end. Not by deciding to stop searching, not by telling yourself you've found what you were looking for, by simply noticing that in this moment, in this settled, open state, there is nothing to search for. The knowing is here, not on the other side of more effort, not waiting for you to be more ready. Here, in this moment, in this quality of awareness you are currently resting in. Let the searching end the way Mira's searching ended, not with a decision, with a recognition. The recognition that the monad's transmission has been present the entire time, and that what has been changing is not the transmission, but your capacity to be still enough to receive it. And right now, you are still enough. The instrument is settled. The reception is open. The signal is present. Now, let the recognition land fully. Let it become the ground rather than the peak. Let it be not something you're experiencing, but something you're resting in. The knowing is not a visitor. It's the floor. It's what everything else is standing on. Let your awareness settle into it, the way your body settles into the ground, fully, without holding back. Stay here as long as you can, not as a practice, as an arrival. When you come back to ordinary awareness, the question to carry with you is not what did I experience? The question is what is still present? Because if the crossing has happened, even partially, even as the beginning of a phase transition rather than its completion, something will still be present. A quality, a thread, a sense of the ground being different from what it was before you sat down. That thread is the new phase beginning. Follow it. This is the practice. 3 movements. Settling the instrument, opening the reception, crossing the threshold. Do it now if you can, or return to it tonight, in the stillness before sleep, when the noise of the day has settled, and the monad's signal is naturally closer to the surface. But do it, not as an exercise, as the crossing it is. Now let's talk about what changes on the other side, specifically, not in the language of vague elevation, but in the language of concrete experience. The first thing that changes is your relationship to decision-making. On this side of the gate, decisions are primarily a cognitive process. You gather information, weigh options, project probable outcomes, consult your feelings about each option, maybe consult other people, and eventually arrive at a choice that feels like the best available option, given the uncertainty. This process is exhausting, and it produces decisions that you often second-guess afterward, because the process itself is fundamentally uncertain. You're trying to calculate your way to the right answer in a situation where the relevant information is not fully available to your calculating mind. On the other side of the gate, decisions are primarily a reception process. The monad already knows which path is yours. It knows this not because it can predict the future with certainty, but because it holds the pattern of your trajectory, the whole arc of what you're here to do and become. And it can sense which of the available options is aligned with that pattern and which isn't. When your conscious awareness has stable access to the monad's knowing, decision-making changes from calculation to discernment. You still gather information, you still think, but underneath the thinking, there is a quality of knowing that is either present or absent for each option. The options that are aligned with your trajectory have a different quality than the options that aren't, and you can feel the difference. This doesn't mean you never make mistakes. It means you make them from a different quality of information. And when you do make a mistake, you recognize it faster, because the monad's knowing is continuously present as a reference point. And when your choices diverge from your trajectory, the divergence is perceptible. You can feel it, and you can correct. The second thing that changes is your relationship to other people's opinions. On this side of the gate, other people's opinions about what you should do, who you should be, what's possible for you, carry enormous weight. Not because you're weak, because you're using them as a substitute for the monad's knowing, which you can't yet access stably. When you can't hear the signal clearly, you look for it in other people's clarity. You borrow their certainty because your own is intermittent. This is not a failure. It's a reasonable adaptation to a real limitation. On the other side of the gate, other people's opinions become interesting rather than authoritative. You can hear them, consider them, learn from them, without being destabilized by them. Not because you've become arrogant, because you have a stable reference point that isn't dependent on external validation. The monad's knowing is the reference point. When someone tells you that what you're doing is wrong or impossible or misguided, you can check it against that reference point. If the knowing confirms the concern, you take it seriously. If the knowing doesn't confirm it, you can let it pass without it shaking your ground. This is a profound change in how you move through the world. Not because you've become invulnerable to feedback, because you've become a more accurate discerner of which feedback is signal and which is noise. The third thing that changes is your relationship to time. The monad, as Leibniz described it, perceives the whole of reality as a single, complete pattern. It doesn't experience time the way your conscious mind does, as a linear sequence of moments moving from past to future. It holds the pattern whole. When your conscious awareness has stable access to the monad's knowing, your experience of time changes in a specific way. Not that you suddenly exist outside of time. You still live in sequence, but you have access to a quality of orientation that is not available to a consciousness that is entirely captured by the present moment's anxiety. You know where you're going. not in a detailed, literal sense, in the sense of orientation, the way you know which direction is north, even when you can't see the North Star. The pattern is present. The trajectory is felt. And this changes how you experience the present moment, because the present moment is no longer a source of anxiety about whether you're on the right path. It's a point on a path whose direction you can feel. This is not the same as certainty about outcomes. The monad's knowing is not a guarantee of specific results. It's an orientation to your own deepest trajectory. And that orientation is enormously different from the experience of being